Welcome to the Association 4.0 podcast, your association's no-fluff playbook to navigating and thriving in Industry 4.0 or the digital marketplace. Each week, we bring expert insights to help you and your association stay ahead of the curve.
Hello, my name is Sherry Budziak, and I am the host of the Association 4.0 podcast. I'm also co-founder of .org Community and founder and CEO of .org Source, a consultancy to associations. Today, my guest is Kim Robinson. Kim is president of Frontline Co and leads the firm's association management practice. Since 2002, her exacting standards, relentless energy, and commitment to excellence has helped grow Frontline Co from 2 employees to 30, with many national awards along the way. Kim is a certified association executive, and her vision focuses on member services and recruitment, financial and database management, communications, continuing education, and building strong strategic alliances. I always enjoy hearing your unique perspective on the association community, Kim, and I really appreciate you joining me today.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
So tell our audience a little bit about Frontline Co and your background.
Sure. Well, I had a great career in state government before I started Frontline. My degrees in political science, probably like a lot of people with degrees in political science, I wasn't 100% certain what I'd be doing with that, but I ended up getting involved in state government. I held a variety of positions, and along the way in that role, I met a lot of people that worked in associations. I think there's a really good sort of nexus between association work and the public sector. And so when I was sort of ready to conclude my public sector career, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to work for myself. It was just something I always had in my mind that I wanted to do. I wasn't quite sure what that would look like. But as I was exiting from state government, some of my contacts started sort of talking to me about some management needs that they had in a couple of different associations. And so I really thought, well, that would be something I might be interested in. That'd be a fit for me. And so I started with one client, and then I realized, I could actually sort of, use that experience with one client and kind of share it with multiple clients. And so that's I didn't even know association management companies really were a thing in 2002, but I kind of figured out, I get how that model works. So that's how it all began. And I've been really fortunate to have, great clients that have come along, great team members to work with. And that's what I've done since 2002. As you said in the intro, we now have 30 employees, which is really exciting. And it's a much different company that was when I started with 2 people in 2002.
Right. So what type of associations benefit from being supported by an association management company? And I guess what are some of the advantages to that approach?
Well, I think it could really be relevant to almost any association. I think my clients tend to be smaller to mid-size, and certainly very large associations probably have more of a need for, captive or standalone staff. But I think for small to mid-size associations, especially, they can really benefit from being managed by a management company. I think the biggest advantage, I would say there are 2 that kind of in my years of doing this, I think 2 things have come to light. One is, and it's really relevant right now, I feel like AMCs do a great job of managing transitions. Mm-hmm. So if you have a situation, of course, so much going on in the workforce and transitions and people leaving. And I think when you have those situations and you're part of an AMC, you're not starting from scratch. You don't have an executive director leaving and then just, sort of running around trying to figure out, how you're going to get somebody to take over quickly and pick up the ball. With an AMC, you usually have multiple people that have been involved working with that client, and they can kind of seamlessly pick up the ball. And I've had that happen over and over. And I do think that's one of the big benefits of an AMC model. And then the other thing, the other big benefit is that you get access to a lot of experience that maybe you didn't have to gather on your own. So you're working, like for my company, I have 30 people. We've got now a lot of experience doing a lot of different things for a lot of different clients. And it's great to be able to take an experience, good or bad, like to learn, with one client and then be able to sort of transfer that experience in many cases to another client. So I would say those are the two that I think are really probably the two key benefits. I mean, it can be more cost effective and it cannot. It just sort of depends on, what the client needs and what services they're wanting to access.
Sure. So I'm curious of how the pandemic affected your clients and your work with them.
So I have a number of clients in healthcare. And so you can imagine that for people in healthcare, there was a really profound impact. I would say overall, I don't feel like we had any hugely negative financial impacts for our clients. I think some things that for certain happened are that, especially again in healthcare, but really all of our clients, as everybody's just scrambling with their own lives and their own jobs and their own families and their own issues, the whole board structure that just became a lot more challenging, they were so focused, again, healthcare especially, they were so focused on their own careers and their own jobs and their own demands that I think, in some cases it became a little more challenging to focus on the association. That'd be one thing I would say was an impact. And the other was, of course, what everybody's seen, which is, a transition to virtual events because we weren't getting together in person. From a financial perspective, much of that was very positive because when you have a virtual event, sometimes you can really keep the cost down. So some of that was actually a positive, but I also think people really missed getting together. I think one of the primary benefits of an association is the community. And you see that, in your own, the groups you work with. And so I know that was something people really missed. And so we're now sort of getting back to a little bit of that. So that'll be nice.
Has there been any strategies that have permanently changed as a result of the shifts that you had to make because of the pandemic?
I don't think we will ever go back to the way things used to be fully. Like I said, I think, we'll use gatherings, meetings, whatever, one-on-ones. We'll use that as an example. I think that it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the things that happened as a result of the pandemic are going to be here for a long time. And one of those is how much more efficient we can all be with like a Zoom meeting, for example. And so now maybe where you would have in the old days, maybe all of your board meetings would have been in person. So now maybe they're all via Zoom. It doesn't really negate the interest in getting together in person, but I feel like there's an interest in getting together in person for more fun things. We still want to be together. We still want to network. We still want to hang out, but I'm not necessarily as interested maybe in spending all day in a board meeting in person when I can, traveling to a meeting, being in the meeting, traveling home from the meeting, maybe I can knock that out in a couple of hours now if we do it via Zoom. Still want to interact with people personally, but maybe just differently. And I think the meetings as well. I think it's great to be in person, but there are an awful lot of people who figured out during the pandemic, oh my gosh, this is so much less expensive for me. I'm not traveling. I don't have to pay to travel to a conference. Right. I don't have to pay for a hotel. So I just think now people are seeing the other possibilities. And I don't think it's going to be a shift 100% one way or the other. I think everybody kind of wants to be served on their terms. And I think that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of is one of those things where, back in early in my career, and as you know, I do a lot of work in digital strategy, that everyone's like, well, Sherry, what do we do now? We have social media. So do we not do email or do we not do X? And it was like, no, you're still doing that. And right. So I think that's where we are. We're doing this and now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that is exactly the description of what's going on. Nobody wants to give up whatever it was they thought they had or wanted before, but now you're just trying to meet all these new demands, that people, like I said, I will say there were a number of my clients who just fought tooth and nail the idea of a virtual conference. And then after we did it, they're like, that was a lot easier and less expensive for me. It was better than I thought. So I just want to keep doing that thing. Right. I think now we're all in that position of we've sort of opened that door to all of these additional possibilities. We can't give up all of our old things, but now we're just adding on a whole bunch of new things.
Right. So, Kim, as you interact with a variety of organizations and leaders and boards, what is your most important advice that you can give them at this time?
Well, for board members, I guess this is very self-serving because this is the way I like to work. I think that the most, the thing that I always tell board members, whether they're my clients or not, is, whoever you're going to work with, whether it's a standalone staff or you're working with an AMC, I just think that partnership between the staff and the board is so critical. Like, to me, when that's in place and there's a high level of trust and respect on both sides, that's about the best that you can do. That ensures the greatest level of success from my perspective. When maybe that trust, when things happen and there's some incident or a new face in the board or the staff, and there just isn't that rapport. I mean, that's a real danger zone for me. It's just so much more rewarding and productive when everybody's pulling in the same direction and we respect each other's roles and the vision that we're all working on together. It just doesn't get better than that. And that's what makes this, such a fun industry to work in. And I guess I would say from the board perspective, if you don't have that, I'd be thinking about it, because if you don't have it, everything's so much harder.
Yeah, we're in a situation with the client now that the board has lost trust, and it's really causes a lot of other trickle effects that you wouldn't necessarily think, from staff morale and turnover to revenue to, I can go on and on. So that is a really important point that you make.
Yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. We've all seen it, right? Either with our, in our own world or with friends. It's really something I try to avoid at all costs. If I have an opportunity to work with somebody, but I see that, they're going to be very distrustful or want to micromanage everything. It gives me a lot of, that's just a relationship I probably don't want to be in.
Right.
And I think sometimes boards, especially if they've had a bad experience, you can sometimes understand what causes it, right? They've had a bad experience already. But I think, again, if you don't have that, I'd be looking for it, right? Like, if you have somebody you don't trust, then you got to move on. It's like having an employee that you don't trust. They shouldn't be in your operation then,
Right. Yeah. I was talking to a board a couple months ago that they asked me a specific question, and I had to respond to them that they're too involved in the operations. And they said their response was, well, that's Sherry, because we don't trust them and we don't trust that this is going to get done. And I was like, okay, well, we need to solve for that, because, you're doctors and you need to be focused on other things.
Exactly.
So,
well, and it's what, occasionally I've gotten into that dialogue with a client where they start to get into more of the management side. And what I generally say about that is, who's doing your job if you're doing my job? So if you're busy managing the day-to-day operation of this association, which is certainly, you're right, if that's something, but who's doing the vision part? Like, who's setting the direction for the organization and keeping their eye on the big picture if you're getting mired in the day-to-day? And those are the jobs, right? Those are the two, in the broadest terms, those are the two things. I can do the management side. I can't do the vision side for the client. So I think that's what gets lost. You're just sort of rudderless at that point. If a board is getting that mired in day-to-day operation, it's not a good situation for them or for the staff,
Yeah. So, do you see association business models changing in the future, or no? I know there's a lot of discussion around it and people have different opinions. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think it's already changing a lot, and I think it's going to keep changing. I think boards and associations, just as a rule, I think they're more savvy about fees and what they should expect to pay for services.
Mm-hmm.
There are more options. You can have your own staff. You can have an AMC. There are other models where there's some associations that are also serving as a management company by managing their chapters or some other affiliated groups. So I think it's already evolved, and I think it's going to keep evolving. There's for-profit associations now. In the old days, every association was a not-for-profit,
right?
Almost every. So I think it's going to keep evolving. Certainly, people have more access to information. not necessarily knowledge, but information than ever before. And I think there's a place for all of that, right? Like I would never say, oh, AMC is the only way. There's many opportunities, but I think, boards are probably a lot more savvy than maybe they were 20 years ago about, what their options are. So if anything, I would say, it's going to continue to be competitive. I always hate to see people looking only for price in anything because, I think sometimes you get what you pay for. So I kind of hate to see that downward pressure on price, but certainly that I feel like that is something that's kind of out there. And then the opposite of that as well, because now that the labor market is so super competitive, I feel like it's harder than ever to attract great talent. And there's probably going to be, pressure on the other side to pay a little more. So,
right. Yeah. Well, I think too that, what I'm seeing is as people are going through issues with the employment market, there's also, I think, a place for AMCs to provide specialized support. Like I was talking with somebody yesterday that said, we lost our sponsorship person. And in my mind, I was like, well, there's third parties or there's other AMCs that do that, right? Or there's other functions. So kind of thinking a little bit differently of, do we need to have this expertise on our team? Or is there a resource that can partner with us and be an extension and kind of augment our staff resources?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent thought. It's so we, for example, we have a couple of areas where we've just developed a lot of expertise just because we got directed that way by the clients we had or whatever. So one of them is sort of learning management systems, and the other is marketing, online, digital, all different kinds of marketing. And yeah, I feel like we've built these engines, and it'd be great to be able to provide those services to other associations, smaller ones or other AMCs or whoever doesn't have that capability. I feel like if anything, maybe the point we're getting to here is maybe that's one of the shifts that's going to happen, where people are viewing each other less as competitors and more as collaborators, because I'm never out to steal somebody's client, right? But I am out to, support small and mid-sized associations. And I would love to be able to share all this, information and experience that we've gathered. And, why not help out a smaller association or another AMC that doesn't have that capability? Yeah, I'm totally open to those things. And that same thought has occurred to me.
So you talked about kind of you're gaining this digital expertise for marketing and LMS. How is Frontline helping associations improve their digital strategies?
So we've recently, I kind of, and I know you're a big marketing person too. Like, to me, everything's marketing now. There's no element of association management that isn't also about marketing. So I think, membership, conference attendance, sponsorships. I mean, that's the engine that drives all of it, right? And it's I think maybe this isn't a pandemic thing. It was already happening, but it's increasingly complex, just finding where all of your potential customers are.
Right.
I was talking to actually one of my clients the other day about why they hadn't been marketing one of their events to non-members. And they said, oh, well, because our old AMC partner charged us for each email. So we couldn't afford to send email. You just hear things like that and so I'm sure it's out there. But, I think it's on my mind on anything we're looking at. It's all, to me, about marketing. And then, all marketing is figuring out what's the message and how are you delivering it. And I think the how you're delivering it is the part that's getting more challenging. I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I could send a postcard, to all of my potential conference attendees. But now, where's anybody even getting their mail? Like, I don't even know, it's just so different. So, but to your earlier point, it's not, oh, we're going to all shift to a digital strategy. No. It's the old strategy. And then piled on top of that are a whole bunch of new digital or email or other strategies, because to me, everything is just so much less homogenous than it used to be. There's no one way to reach everybody. So you got to find them where they are and market appropriately. And I think that's what we're really focused on, is not leaving a stone unturned.
Yeah. Well, we're marketing an event and we said, oh, let's look at the database and let's see who's around where the event's going to be. And then because we have association addresses, right, where they work. And then we took a pause and we said, oh, wait a second. People probably aren't going back to the office. So we actually don't know where our audience is in terms of location. Yeah. So that strategy is not going to work.
I think that's maybe one of the, if you were, thinking about a shift that happened as a result of the pandemic, that's a big one, because we used to always know how to get to our members or, our customers. And now, especially in healthcare, a lot of those people still aren't back in an office. And it's not just healthcare. I just don't know where everybody is anymore. So it makes it a lot more challenging, And
everybody in that, to just kind of follow up on that thought, I guess that we all then started doing more outreach and marketing. So there's more emails, more digital marketing, more social media, more. So now we're losing people, just they're not paying attention, right? So we're like, we have to send the message out a million times, a million different ways for them to, to even potentially see what we have going on. So yeah, I think it's just a lot of more effort.
Yeah. And you're right. There's just so much noise. Even not marketing, like even just email, like you send people emails, they're like, oh, maybe did I get that? I don't know. I get 1,000 emails a day. It's so much more challenging. I'm actually kind of contemplating going the other way. Like I have one client I'm working with, and we're not trying to do big anything. We're trying to do a whole series of smaller kind of regional events. And we're not looking to get 100 people. We're looking to get 20 people. Just to do something different, and also to kind of help people get back to being comfortable meeting in person.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think we're all trying a lot of different things and seeing what works best for now, which will be different a year from now.
Right. That's one thing we've definitely learned. So what do you feel is or view as the most important technological development for organizations?
Well, I guess in light of what we were just saying, I guess all the opportunities that now exist for much more sophisticated marketing, where you can segment your audience, you can deliver messages across a bunch of different platforms. I would say that's a thing that we have really increasingly are relying. We use a lot of software in that regard, and I would say that's a big development. There are platforms out there and tools that kind of are specifically for associations. I struggle sometimes with tools that aren't association oriented because they're just not quite right. So finding kind of those marketing platforms where they really understand the association space, that's a thing I've found a lot of value in.
So I appreciate that. And I agree with that as well. So I guess any final thoughts before we wrap up for today?
No, not really. I think we've hit on some really good topics. It's been a good conversation. But no, I think there's so much turmoil, but it's not unique to associations, but those of us that are in that space are obviously trying to navigate through it just like everybody else is. And I think it's not, like I said, I don't think we're going back, but I also don't think it's settled yet. Like, I just think there's going to be variations on this and that will continue to evolve.
We definitely have been, we've kind of gone from one issue to the next, right? We went from the pandemic to virtual meetings. And I was talking to somebody today about, okay, now we're dealing with the expensive travel, and it just doesn't, in the great resignation, whatever that means. And it just doesn't seem to be ending for us, does it?
I don't think it is ending. And I think, I just think all of it, there was already, a lot of change going on. And certainly the pandemic probably hastened that, but I don't think, I think there were some good things that came out of it. Certainly a lot of maybe not as good things, but I just think we're going to be dealing with it for a long time, and it'll be up to all of us to figure out how to adapt and help our clients.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much for your great advice today, Kim. It's always great to hear from someone who supports a variety of association clients, and thanks to our listeners. But if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
So I am at kim@frontlineco.com, or give me a call on my cell, 217-415-0333. Always happy to chat.
That's great. So I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. To meet leaders like Kim, consider joining .org Community. .org Community connects you with a vibrant network of association executives, entrepreneurs, and strategic partners. You can learn more about us at www.orgcommunity.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and discovered tips and information that will add value to your leadership style and your association. .org Source specializes in positioning teams for success with solutions for technology, strategy, and marketing. Please contact us at info@orgsource.com or visit www.orgsource.com to find out how to keep your organization on track to Association 4.0.